All righty, welcome everybody. Welcome to this special episode of Brownsville Tech Live. And in the house tonight, we welcome back Mr. Philip T. Cowen. Mr. Cowen, welcome back. It's been a while.
Well, not that long, but it's a little bit of a while. Yeah,
It's been a
you know,
little bit of a
I
while,
it's completely, but I do exercise my right to vote, and I go try to make my opinion count. You
right?
know,
Yeah, I think the last time I interviewed you, you were running for another position. I can't remember what it was, but
I was on the school board, and I wanted to stay on the school board, kind of to help the current administration,
right,
and didn't succeed. It was November races are very hard to get your name out, and it's just very difficult, and uh, usually you have 50, 60,000 people to vote in there, and you're trying to get
right,
people just to notice. Well, it's a tough deal. So,
right.
you know,
Well, definitely you're back. And could you tell us a little bit about what the position is that you're running for? And then if you if you could give us a little bit of background info. I know you, and a lot of people do, but there may be some people out there that may not. So go ahead. You've got the floor.
minutes, I think will take, you said a couple of minutes, but it may take 4 or 5 minutes to go through the whole spiel. I'm 73 years old, lived a long life, and I've done a lot of things in my life. Believe it or not, I used to build houses for a living,
Oh, wow.
a long time ago. People don't know. The 1970s and early 80s. And so I had to quit with them. This was during Carter's time because the interest rates were 22%. And I just couldn't make any money.
Wow.
But I am a veteran for one. I'm very proud of that. I'm a father with 4 children. I have 7 grandchildren. I'm married to Frances Cooper Cowen. She and I have been married for the past 26 years. And in 1986, I ran for the school board the first time, and I served 3 years. I was part of the original Edgewood versus Kirby plaintiffs group, where we succeeded, have the Robin Hood plan in terms of equalizing property, what was it, taxes, or equalizing school budgets.
Right.
We had $100,000 budget for 40,000 kids, and another town had what was it, $100 million budget for 40,000 kids, and another town had, let's say, 600 million for the same 40,000 kids.
Wow.
And yeah, that was a great discrepancy. And we were succeeded in doing that. And part of what's going on right now really relates to the 1986 to 89 period, but I'll go into that in a little bit. I got off the board. I was wise not to run for reelection. You don't always get reelected because you don't please everybody. It's a tough deal to win a second term as a board member. But I came back in 1992 and ran again, and we hired Dr. Sendejas as our superintendent. And we had the Sendejas miracle in the sense that she put probably 60% of our school system on what was it, probation, and gave them 1 year to straighten out. And everybody went from very low performing to an A campus,
Wow.
all DIST. So yeah, just cracking a whip actually helped more than just money. Uh, I decided in 2016 that I would take another stab at it. I didn't like the way the schools were falling to pieces. I was very instrumental in getting a lot of our schools built, 13 schools total, 2 high schools, Lopez and Rivera, and Perkins and Bella, and you name it, a whole bunch of schools, 13 total. And Hannah was going down, so I wanted to, get something going to renovate our schools, and I was able to get that done in the 4 year period when I was there. We completely renovated all of our schools, changed the lighting in our schools from fluorescent lights to LEDs, reduced the light bill. And Hannah High School, it's 50 something years old, and it's got another 50 years lease on life. Rivera, the same thing. Lopez, Lopez now 20 something years old. We fixed all these schools. We fixed every school possible. And I'm proud of what we did. But anyway, I once I didn't get reelected, I was rather happy. It's kind of a strange deal to do. It's not fun to be on a school board if there's discord.
Right.
The best I ever had when I was on the school board was in 1993 to 95. It was a really nice. I was president of the board. I was able to exercise some strong leadership to get things done. We built these schools. We got the A's for our campuses. We did a lot, and I was proud of it. And I had no desire to run again after that. And I stayed out of it for until 2016 when I decided to run again.
Mm-hmm.
But I was happy just petting my dogs at home and playing with the cats and getting out there and planting my gardens. I love that. And I'm working as a full-time employee myself. I'm a lawyer and a customs broker. So I run a business. We ship a couple hundred trucks of gasoline and diesel to Mexico for a company that is a trading arm of Pemex. So we're real busy.
Right.
And, I really didn't need the aggravation of, sitting over there and having to argue with 6 other people on the board to try to get things done.
Right.
But this position, when it came up, and I'll explain that in a second, this position was interesting. I had the opportunity to help a few people. They were friends, challenge their appraisals last year.
Mm-hmm.
Really woke my eyes up into the way the system works. Right now, people are receiving their appraisals.
Right.
I mean, the shots in the mail you open. I don't know if you've opened yours, but wait till you do and you look at it. Some of these things are 60, 70, 80% increase from one year to the next. The problem they have with these notices of appraised value, they don't explain. They don't lay down the groundwork. In other words, they say your house is so much, and then you're going to have to come up and prove to us why your house isn't worth so much.
Right.
It's like if you were accused of a crime, but you have to show that you haven't done the crime, rather than show that that the government or the state has to prove that you did the crime.
Yeah.
And so there were some citizens in the community that know about my experience. I won't go into private conversations and name names because really people don't need to know that. But they say, you've been around, you've worked real hard, you understood stuff, you've worked real hard in government, you understand government, you've been a taxpayer for 40 something years. Look at this position. You might be able to do some good and help people and be a voice for taxpayers here. Study it like you did with the problems like you did when you were in the school system, and let's see if we can build consensus to work on procedures, protocols, whatever that will help taxpayers defend the appraisals.
Right.
Against especially unreasonable appraisals. And the other thing I saw, I didn't run across this myself, but I've run across a lot of people. I'm talking about 20 or 30 of them who just are furious with the way they were treated when they went and challenged their appraisals. They felt like they were just attacked. And maybe they were mad when they first went into the office. I don't know what went on, but some of the process in terms of people challenging the appraisals really frustrated a lot of people and left them very angry and bitter, at the appraisal process. Nobody's happy. And let me explain how this position came about now. Okay. I don't remember the name of the state senator, but there was one state senator proposed, and the governor was pushing this too, to increase homestead exemptions to 100,000 for independent school district taxes. Okay. And that was put as a constitutional amendment that passed. And then part of the recommendation in this bill was to create taxpayer members of at large for counties over 70,000.
Okay.
We're going to be three in Cameron County. I think it's counties all over Texas that are over 70,000. And the difference between once a person is elected to the board, they're going to serve for 2 years, and then 2 years from now in November, they will run for re-election. And then the January after that election, the people who win those elections will pick straws to see who gets a 2-year or a 4-year term. I could see a scenario where a person ran 3 times to serve 6 years. It's a lot to expect a person to, come in and take this position. This is a countywide position. Okay. Countywide positions normally run $200,000 to run a race countywide. I mean, it's very expensive. I've tried to be very careful with Facebook. You could see my stuff out there and try to figure out some way to reach out. And I'm getting notice, which I'm very pleased with. I hired a person to help me. Not everybody could do it, but I have the means. And I said, a good friend of mine said, Philip, don't run to run, run to win. You know, so, and I said, I'm gonna make a commitment to the people of Cameron County. I'm gonna try to help the taxpayers, and I put a little bit of money out of my own pocket. I'm gonna do it because I really believe in what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And so this board it, it's been created. There will be right now. I think there's the taxing entities pick. I think it's 9 board members or 7 board members, and I'm talking like BISD because of their property values and whatever. They get to pick one. City of Brownsville, I think, gets to pick one. The county, some of the smaller districts. That's a little formula for figuring that out. Anyway, so they nominate people to be on the board. But recently, Jim Tipton, I think, in Brownsville was a Brownsville representative on the appraisal district board. And the board is the board of directors for the appraisal district. They're kind of the governing body of the appraisal district. Richard Molina, he's the director of the appraisal district. He will come in and essentially make recommendations to the board and ask them for approval, set up a budget, just like the school system would do. And one thing that the appraisal district board of directors does is picks the appraisal review board. And the appraisal review board right now is a board consisting of people that were recommended by the chief presiding judge of the county, which I think is Ben Udestic. And it's a job I don't think he really wants, but he recommends people to serve on the appraisal district review board. And they're the ones that will be the ones that will do the hearings for the challenges to the appraisals. Well, the people on this, the 3 people that would be selected at large, or a veto on picking those people. You have to have 2 out of 3 on the people on the at large positions to agree to support the placement of anybody recommended to the appraisal review board. And if 2 out of 3 people say no, they're not going to get on the board. So that's a good check for the taxpayers, but it can also, if you get the wrong people over there, just want to be contrary to be contrary, they can just essentially stop the process of the appraisal district. And if you don't, the appraisal district doesn't do the job properly, the Texas Comptroller's Office, evaluation of what our properties are worth will be the ones that would be used. It's not an automatic, but there's a little means of the way that would work this out. And it would wind up costing taxpayers more money because the Comptroller's Office, they have a property tax assessment division, and they do a study of properties in, say Brownsville and other areas in Cameron County, and they're the ones that come up with the estimates.
Right.
And they kind of push that down on the appraisal district to pick. What was it? They're saying their appraisals are wrong, or that you're undervaluing properties. At one time, appraisal districts could challenge that themselves, saying we're right and you're wrong, comptroller. But now the taxing entity, especially the school systems, are the ones that go challenge that, saying the appraisals that the comptroller's office is recommending should be the correct appraisals are overvalued. And school systems hire attorneys. In the past, they used to get a 15% fee of whatever money they serve. I don't think they get that money anymore. But it was because back in the 80s, I really did not like that. I thought it was a scam just to give money to attorney. I'm an attorney. I don't mind giving money to attorneys, but not 15% of a school budget different savings. I thought that was a lot.
Well, one of the things,
go ahead.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, obviously, a lot of people question well, a lot of people ask, why have property taxes have gone up quite a bit? I mean, you hear people here locally say that the property taxes here have gone up because obviously of SpaceX and Elon Musk, but in reality, property taxes increased across the board across the state, and obviously those increases couldn't be necessarily linked to SpaceX or Elon Musk themselves. So
No.
why did property taxes in general go up?
There's a lot of reasons, and I'm not a realtor and I'm not a person that evaluates property, but there's a lot of reasons property values would change. Sales, in other words, as a house gets sold over and over and over again, there's a little increase, a little bump up in the price as you go along. And, house that, in 1980 might have sold for 26,000, might be selling for 180,000 today. Uh, cost of building. When I was building, you could build for $18 a square foot. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of tough to build for under $100 a square foot, for a fancy home.
Right.
Uh, so there's a lot of things, and cost of materials, inflation, whatever. There's a lot of reasons why homes have gone up. Uh, I don't think anybody complains about the increase in value. What they don't like is nobody telling them why it went up.
Right.
I have an employee at the office who lives on Highland. He's a customs broker, like as I am,
Yeah.
and he got his tax statement today. Went home for lunch and had the horror of looking at the tax statement, and his home was appraised at 150,000 last year. It was a little bit lower than that the year before, and I challenged it last year. Well, now they want to go up to $227,000 for the appraisal. But in
Wow.
the Yeah, no, that's a lot. But in the fine print in the middle, they have these forms they send you, notice of appraised value to 2024 notice of appraised value. And then when you get all the different taxes you're going to pay to the different taxing entities in the body of the tax appraisal estimate, there's a statement that tells you what is the percentage from 2019 to present of increase in value on your home.
Mm-hmm.
And his said from 2019 to 2024, his home increased in value by 105%.
Wow.
I mean, that's just incredible. Uh, I have my home, my office that went up, that's going to go up from 114,000, say 115,000 to 157,000. Okay.
Wow.
And I'm not going to challenge mine because I know what's taking place downtown Brownsville. I have my office in the Rock Gomez home. It's a beautiful building. It's on the corner of Fifth and Levy. And all of downtown is changing. Even places where there was a Ropa de Segunda, whatever else it is, it used to be, those are starting to disappear. And you're getting
Right.
nice restaurants being built in downtown, and all of the retail businesses are improving. It's becoming an entertainment center. So yeah, my property, and I wouldn't sell my property for the 157,000. I think it's worth a little bit more.
Right.
And I wouldn't sell it anyway because I like it. It's my office. Uh, but Highland Court, where uh, the my other my employee lives, nothing's changed
Right.
from 2019 to present. Maybe there's a few sales that took place, but there's not that many. And so when he received his tax notice of appraised value, they didn't say, we're appraising your value because this happened, that happened, that happened, that happened, that happened. They're just saying it's praise, and you can challenge it if you want,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so that to me is just not the way you should be doing it. We should statement of reasons. And I don't know if I can get this done, at least starting out, but I think there should be a statement of reasons why a property value is going on. The comptroller's office has a rationale, whatever. And I think this should be a transparent process. It should be open to everyone.
Now,
Uh,
prior to this election season, these three positions did not exist, right?
Prior to it was like the fox taking care of the hen house.
Yeah.
The box is taking care of the handouts. The taxing entities, were the governing appointed people to govern the appraisal district, and they they essentially had the chief appraiser and his staff go ahead and appraise property to the benefit of the taxing entities. If the appraisals went up, the taxing entities benefited.
Right.
Now, one of the things that you have to separate school systems and the other taxing entities. Okay, there has been an attack by the current administration in Austin against public education. My brother Paul, he used to work for Senator Lucia for 24 years, said that essentially the lieutenant governor is going to turn every school in the state of Texas, if he can have his way, into a charter school. The governor wants to have vouchers and have people be able to take their kids anywhere. I'm not sure if it's anywhere in the country, but they, essentially don't have to use the public school systems. And, you and I know that a lot of people in Texas define their community and their school system, but the little area they live, the schools they home, the team they have, everything, that's part of the culture of Texas.
Right.
And that goes against the Texas and Texans and who they are, so that's an issue. But what needs to be done, and I'm trying to say this right. Recently, we received $100,000. The exemption for your homestead exemption increased from 40,000 to 100,000.
Right.
But that was only for ISDs, independent school districts. Okay, City of Brownsville didn't lose the money. Other taxing entities didn't lose it. It's the school systems lost it. And then the taxes, the school systems have a double whammy here. The comptroller's office, with their property tax assessment division, do a study and determine what the value should be, and how they're undervalued in a particular community, particular school system. And then they would say, you either have to tax at the rate we say, or we're going to cut your funding. And so a few days ago, the current superintendent, Jesus Chavez, came out and said, we're going to use the comptroller's office values so we can maximize funding.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be an increase. Now, I wanted to share something, and if this doesn't work, we'll just stop, okay? Because we had a little problem setting this thing up. But I'm going to try to do this.
All right, go ahead.
I'm going to try to do this, share this, and I think I have to go. Can you see that chart, or can we make it bigger? Oh yeah, you can see it on my screen, or can we make it bigger?
Actually, you could just move it a little bit to the left,
There,
and that would work.
That.
Just
you see that
your
better?
window. Just your window.
Oh, my window?
Yeah, you know where you've got the browser right there? Just move the
This
browser.
one?
Yeah, just move the browser a little bit to the left.
Okay, this one here, I'm not sure which browser you're talking about.
Yeah, where the charts are at, just move that to the left.
Why don't we just make it big? You see it all.
Yeah, you could try to do that.
Okay, but anyway, I would say let's see if I can see. No, it's not going to work. Make it smaller here. I want it to be live, but it's not going to be live. Okay, we don't have to worry. Let's just take it out and we'll get rid of it. You were screen sharing. There it is. And I'll share. Stop share. I'm going to stop. Okay, it should have stopped. Okay. Anyway, I don't necessarily need this, but I wanted to tell you that in 1997, you had a home that was worth $91,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that time there was a $15,000 homestead exemption. The ISD tax rate, the independent school district tax rate, was $76,000. Okay, so that's that 15%. Mm-hmm. 2015, the same home now, that's 17 years later, is $195,500. That's the appraised value. ISD tax rate with the exemption is $170,000. Okay. 2021, that $195,000, and this is 6 years later, The home is appraised at 300,000. ISD rate is 260,000. The exemption was 40,000. So in 2023, that $300,000 appraised value is now 340,000. Okay, ISD rate, the tax exemption is 100,000. So the ISD tax rate now, and the home is going to be appraised at 239. So the difference between that's 100,000 difference. What has essentially happened because of the increase in the appraised value, the state comptroller's office is coming in and reimposing the tax on property, saying that your property is worth more money. And so they're giving you some of the exemption, but going back. They're taking away from you at the same time. It's kind of like you talk about truth in lending or whatever else it is, truth in taxation. They do give you a tax exemption, but when the case of my employee, they took it all away from him at the same time.
Oh, wow.
In fact, his tax rate went up because if he had 100,000 exemption, he would have had 50,000 taxes, ISD tax rates. Now he's going to have 127,000.
Wow.
So his tax, doubled, and he got an exemption. So I mean, who's fooling whom?
Right.
I want to see the appraisal review district board of directors be more proactive to fight this system.
Right.
Because I think iniquitous. I think it's unfair to the taxpayers. I've talked to Richard Molina a little bit, and he's disheartened. He doesn't have a lot of faith that litigation or anything else is going to make a difference. But he didn't have 3 people on a board that can negate his recommendations. So I think they're going to have to take the 3 people that get elected seriously. Some people running, and you can look at their campaign material, want to get rid of Mr. Molina. That's the platform they're running on. Some people are accusing the appraisal district of fixing values for friends. Your value would be lower than the house right next door to you because your political connection. I tend to not believe that. I think they're pretty honest people, but that's the rumor out there or whatever. And so what I want to see is this board becoming a voice for the taxpayers. These 3 people becoming a voice for the taxpayers. And then these people here exercise the leadership so they can talk to the other taxing entities and say, look, you need to treat your people better.
Right.
And it's not going to be an easy thing. Now, the critical thing in this election, Daniel, is this is the charter board. This is the first board that's going to serve. How this first charter board functions is going to determine how this board is going to work in the future. I mean, it can just be pushed aside and ignored.
Right.
And it could be 3 people come in and they don't mean well and they want to shut the government down. There's groups out there that don't have any faith in government. That. I know the Republican Party has part of their platform in this, the primary in this past March, where they had a proposal to eliminate property taxes in the state of Texas for every taxing entity. In other words, we're not going to be able to pay a policeman, a fireman, or anybody, build our streets, whatever. Just let's see what happens. That's not going to work.
Right.
There's another. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's one other thing that when people have that attitude, it sounds good, but if you have to look at when you're trying to pass the burden of paying for government to someone else, and people with some money, and I know there are the ones with more money, they employ people and do whatever, that they need to do to keep people working, But by taking their wealth and removing it from the tax rolls, let's say no property taxes, you're going to have to find the money somewhere else, and probably it would wind up in sales tax increases. So really what they would be doing is passing the costs of government from, a property-based tax system to labor,
Correct. Yeah.
and you're gonna say your workers, you're gonna have to pay for everything, you
Yeah,
know.
that's one of the things that I kept on stating last year is that, anytime we're thinking of making a reduction, for example, in property taxes, that means that there's going to be less money to the entities that require or benefit from those taxes. So definitely here in Texas, our only recourse beyond property taxes is the sales taxes. If we were to go about and just say eliminate property taxes completely, that means that instead of us paying what is it, 8.25 now, or is it 7.25 sales tax, we could be looking at an 18 or 19% sales
Well,
tax comparable
the
to a European VAT tax.
of the VAT, yeah, the value added tax. Yeah, no, I agree. You could see something like that in the future. And, but hopefully we don't, because I think there should be a mix of everything. But there's one other problem with this process is, okay, what hurts the school system doesn't hurt the other taxing entities. So they're not gonna lose money, property values go up, city does nothing, county does nothing, and they can collect more money.
Right.
And the school system is told, you're not gonna be able to receive maximum funding because your values are too low.
Yeah.
So the school system rushes out and decides to use state values, the comptroller office values, and to get maximum funding, but at the same time, they've raised everybody's tax burden on all the other taxing entities that exist out there, and the
Yeah.
water districts, cities, counties, you name it.
Yeah.
And this has to be rethought. Now, this position is not going to be able to deal with, but I think people really need to learn how this works. And realize when people talk about giving you something, like we're going to give you an exemption, people come back and say, look, tell me another one. I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I can sell you too, because they're not being fair and truthful with us when they have this system set up. And there will be people argue with me and say, oh, no, it's a fair system, whatever else it is. 105% increase with no explanation makes no sense. And putting the burden on the taxpayer to go say it ain't so. No,
Right.
I'm sorry, that is just not fair. And somehow or another, in the process, setting up the charter board that were there, making this board a voice for the taxpayers and becoming a target, because if you can't achieve it, people may start machine gunning for you and kick you out of office, but at least you got to work at it.
All right. So one of the things you mentioned early on in the show was that the people that get elected this time around are only going to be serving 2 years. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
Years, and then they run, I think it's November 2026, something like that, they run again.
Okay.
And then 2027, January, they pick straws to see who's get a 2 year from 4 years, kind of like state senators, they do that. Lamatia got elected and they drew straws. She picked 2 years, otherwise she'd be running in 2 years.
Right, because I remember interviewing her about 2 years ago, and then I was in shock when I saw signs again, and I thought to myself, "Wait a second, didn't I just interview her a few months ago?" So let's talk a little bit about the uh, board of. I guess you mentioned board of directors. So, beyond the three people that are going to be elected to serve on these on this appraisal district, who are the other guys that are going to be involved? Is the county tax assessor collector involved in any of this?
Right now, the county tax assessor collector is an ex official member of the board, not a
Okay.
voting member. Uh, there's going to be 9 members of the board, and I know that 8 of them can vote. I'm not sure how the county tax assessor collector is going to fit into this new board. It would seem to me that the person could vote and have a say so in some form, because if you have an 8-member board, they vote, you could tie and not get anything done. So but I really haven't studied that issue because, it's, I'll get to that when I run, when I'm there and see how it's
Right.
going to work. But the board, outside of the appraisal review board selection, uh, the three at-large members are just like any other member. Now, you ask, how do these people get selected? The taxing entities, there's a formula they have, and I don't have it memorized, but it used to be taxable wealth, I think, with like Brownsville, the island, the county, whatever. They had a taxable wealth plus population formula. I don't exactly know how it works because I haven't looked at it in years. But I do know that BISD gets to, because of their size and the wealth of the district, they get to pick one. The city of Brownsville picks one. I think Jim Tipton is the one there. Eddie Garcia is on the appraisal review board as the BISD board representative. Before that, Laura Perez Reyes was there. And Prissy Tipton was there also before,
Okay.
after Laura Perez Reyes got off the board. I'm not sure. There's a David Garza, it's a JP that's on the board as an appointee. There's a David Garza, county commissioner, but I think the David Garza that's on the board as chair right now is a justice of the peace. It's not the David Garza. And he was appointed, I think, by the county, but I don't know how it is. But there will be 5 members instead of 7 in the future.
Okay.
That would be selected. And there's formulas there. And the 3 at-large positions will bring it up to 8, and then it'll be topped off with the tax assessor collector, who would be there because he's elected to that position. If Tony gets reelected, he'll be it. If Eddie wins that election, he'll be the person that will go there. And with him coming on and winning, but I don't think he would serve until next year, so nothing would change for this board.
Okay. So it's my understanding that this board meets only 4 times a year. Is that correct?
As now, but I would like to change that.
Okay.
Because I would like to see some committees set up. I mean, that's what they get to do, but if they want to get, if they want to say you're going to meet 4 times a year and we don't care what you think in between, and then they have people to select, for the appraisal review board, we can kind of say, look, we need to sit down and discuss some of these other issues because we're not going to do business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And it behooves you to do it because what do you want all these mad taxpayers,
Right.
jumping on you, let's work out some kind of process so we can help them vent and show them how to do it and challenge some of what the state of Texas is doing. My brother Paul had a little joke about it, and he said the state senator who passed this bill wanted to shift the blame from local entities and elected officials and the legislature to these 3 people that got elected, and let them be the ones that get clubbed to death every election. But I don't know if that's really going to be what's happened or what happens or not. If you get to, I don't see that this was created so we do nothing. Yeah. Is what I'm trying to say. That makes no sense.
Right. Now, a question with regards, you mentioned about a lot of people, were very upset last year because obviously of the appraised value, and there was a lot of push to try to get appeals done. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't bother to make an appeal, even though my taxes did go up. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't bother because I just didn't understand what the process was, number one, what I needed to do, number two. And at the end I wasn't really sure whether it was going to be very effective if I did all these things and I showed up. I mean, what's the success rate of an appeal? I mean, do you have any idea what those numbers are, for anybody?
I don't have any idea what the success rate. I do know that I got turned down with both things that I requested by the people. There were 3 people on the panel that I got, but then when it went before the entire board, they went ahead and granted me about 2/3 of what I wanted.
Okay.
One of them was a home my son-in-law has on 22nd Street in Brownsville. That his home, his dad lives there. The city and the college have cut off hit the home from 22nd Street, and it's no longer has access to leave 22nd Street. The only way I can get to the home is through the alley.
Oh,
And they
wow.
wanted $40,000 or $30,000 in value from 40,000, 45,000 to 77,000. And I said, well, you find me a home in Brownsville where somebody has, their front porch facing an alley and say it's worth more than the house that faces the street. And, I'll believe you, but, and they didn't want to give me much credit for that, a couple of thousand, but I got a lot more uh, relief for that house. I did the same house that went up 105,000 that I'm talking about. I challenged it last year. We were able to get the value down from like 170 to 150 or something. They did reduce it. Now they want to go to 227.
Mm.
And last year, nobody told me what the reason was. I went and started looking for comps, they call them comps, but comparative properties, similar properties, and made my
Right.
arguments based on that. I think the problem with Highland Court is they're comparing Highland Court to Rio Viejo property there. The properties in Rio Viejo, the lots are worth $300,000, good sized lots, and the ones on Highland Court, which is across the street, totally different character of neighborhood. Might be a half mile away from Rio Viejo or less than that, quarter of a mile, and they want to say they're comparable. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know. You know your neighborhood. You know where you live. You know where the hottie tots and the ritzy people live, and where the more humble people live. And so and you don't. And not everybody wants to live in a super rich neighborhood. Some people just like a Leave It to Beaver type neighborhood, and they want to live there.
Right.
And so, and property taxes, they appraisals and tax collections and delinquent tax sales have changed the character of South Texas completely.
Mm-hmm.
In the 19th century, cattle brought a pretty good price for part of after the Civil War for like 20, 25 years. Then the price of cattle plummeted, but property values didn't go down. And people were being charged for the farmland property taxes when they couldn't produce the revenue as they did 10 years before, and they wound up losing the property.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that lost most of that were Hispanic farm holders and
Right.
ranch holders. They lost it. And people like, what was it? Kennedy, Mifflin Kennedy's wife, Perla Bailly, what was I think it was not Bailly, but I'll remember her name in a minute. But anyway, she was really good at going to the Cornell Steps and picking up properties, and other
Right.
people did. They were able to, and so you had a shifting of wealth from, communities that were ranching communities that were totally Hispanic, but suddenly there were more Anglo,
Right.
and it devastated South Texas in terms of property ownership. Not everybody. It was the Petro Vela, the Kennedy is what it was. And it's and I'm not an expert on that, but I was fascinated by what the whole taxing business has done to our society down here in South Texas. It's made paupers where people originally, they had money.
Right.
And the history in Matamoros, the Matamoros Brownsville, they belonged to the Cavazos family.
Right.
And they had what was it, Maria I think it was Cavazos de Govechea. She owned so many barrios from the center of Matamoros going so many kilometers north of Brownsville and south of Matamoros. And then Charles Stillman picked up essentially some of her property through a little shenanigans that took place in the in terms of title, playing with titles.
Right.
It was called head rights at the time, but I'm not going to get into it. But she didn't lose the property that she challenged it, and the case went to the Supreme Court. And the challenge was, you can't use the land grants. The land grant should not be recognized in Texas because Mexico lost the war or whatever the reason was. I've read the case, but I don't remember all the details.
Hmm.
And the Supreme Court of the United States said, no, they do. And so
Right.
they were able to keep a lot of the property and they did it. And so it
So
was kind of interesting thing. But anyway, go ahead. I'm getting a little astray here,
no,
but I find
that's
history.
all right. I find it really fascinating to find people in Brownsville that have a huge historical perspective, and so I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to share with the viewers. I know that the Cowens have been part of Brownsville for a long, long time,
Well, I'll be very fast about it because we're going to run out of time.
and and you guys continue to be part of that.
No, but
So,
we
I mean,
made involved.
how far back do you guys
Okay, William
go?
Neal, the first relative of mine we know of was William Neal.
Yeah.
He was born in 1807, I think. Could
Wow.
be wrong. It was 1807. And he was, had problems at home with his stepmom.
Uh-huh.
So he got a job on a man of war that was, I guess, leased to the Mexican Revolution, or the Mexican part of the Mexicans who were fighting against Spain in the War of Independence of 1821.
Right.
Okay. And now he wasn't very old at the time, about 16 years old. Okay. And he fought in the Battle of Veracruz on that man of war. A man of war is just a ship, and it's like a battleship. And he fought in the Battle of the Refugio de San Juan de Ulloa,
Mm-hmm.
Ulloa, or something like that. And the revolution, what was it, rebels, the ones who were fighting for the independence of Mexico, won both those battles and took them. Well, he received a land grant from the Mexican government for service.
Mm-hmm.
He went back to England, ran across, it was Una Rutland, who was the daughter of the Earl of Rutland.
Mm-hmm.
They eloped, took off. His dad, her dad disowned her, but they came to, in other words, we're in Mexico, we're not in the United States. And they came back in 1822, and they first went to Pittsfield, Pennsylvania, and then they came to Mexico. But in 1822, 23, he's over here trying to get some stuff set up. He establishes a stagecoach business. I'm a customs broker, very similar, moving merchandise from Brownsville and Matamoros over to Baghdad and Clarksville and Point Isabel to lighter it out to ships. That was his business. And he owned a stagecoach that went up the river going to Laredo.
Uh-huh.
You know, the Kennedy and King had the steamship. He
Uh-huh.
had he didn't pick the right kind of mode of transportation because otherwise we probably own Chase Bank today, like the part of the what was it, Stillman family that now owns. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, Lewis Cowen was born in 1833. He came in 20 years, he was very young, 20 years into, when he was about 20, 21, he went to Matamoros and he met Loretta Neal,
Mm-hmm.
okay, William Neal's daughter, and he married her. And then they had, I think, 7 kids or something like that. And my grandfather, Raphael Cowen, he was born July 4th, 1776, and they gave him the name Raphael Centennial Cowen. And it was strange. And what was amazing, he died July 3rd, 1939.
Oh wow.
Almost made it to July 4th or whatever. So Centennial almost made it. And Raphael and what's her name? Lucille Thomas, his wife, had my father, Louis Raphael, and Louis, of course, from Lewis Cowen. And Raphael was a partner with Lewis Cowen in real estate ventures in the Valley. Anyway, and a brother, my uncle David, who was epileptic, and he died, because of complications from epilepsy. It's, I think, a seizure or whatever else it is, and probably set his heart off, something like that. But Lucille Thomas was the granddaughter of John Salmon Rip Ford.
Ah.
And he's the man that fought the last battle of the Civil War at Palmetto Hill. And he also, fought Juan Cortina during the Cortina Wars. and wrote his memoirs. They're published by the University of Texas, called Rip Ford's Texas. It's literature, it's beautiful writing.
Yeah.
And so we know our history, and and one of the things they taught us is, don't relive your history, live your own and create your own history. And
Right.
so that's kind of what my nephew's doing. He's not looking back to see, I'm going to do what he did. No, I'm going to do what I need to do.
Right.
And and like my nephew, he's a consensus builder.
Right.
He comes up, he says, I'm going to make sure everybody has a part in this. And it
Right.
works. And I don't ask him how. I just know he's going to get it done. And
Right.
I want to be the same way. I don't want to work it out and say, gentlemen, as Lyndon Johnson used to say, let us reason together. Let
Right.
us work it out.
Well,
You know,
definitely, I think that, experience matters and history matters. I mean, you guys definitely, I have a term for a lot of people that come and go. I call them carpetbaggers, but you
so
guys
that
are
was
basically
bigger in the
groundswell.
past.
Uh,
That was bigger in the past than now.
but definitely, it matters. It matters, to have that historical perspective. And I'll be honest with you, I actually did a little bit of research on your family history a couple of days ago because you kind of spurred my curiosity, and I did read about your family and how far it went, and it was like incredible. I don't know if I'm third or fourth generation here, but you guys go way back.
And what's amazing is it's not that many generations,
Right.
because Neil, born in 1807, is my great great grandfather.
Yeah.
He's not great 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 grandfather. He's my great great grandfather, double great.
Yeah.
Como dice, tan abuelo. You
Right.
know, and so that's kind of amazing, because a lot of these men had children later in life. I mean, had some young children too, but like
Right.
Rayful Centennial, he was the baby,
Yeah.
born in 1876. So, when, what was it? And he lived in 1939. My dad didn't have me till I was, until he was 50 years old.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, my dad was born in 1902.
Wow.
And my father would talk about William Neal, and my grandmother, Lucille Thomas, would talk about Lucille Thomas Cowen, would talk about William Neal or Rip Ford, John Ford, as though they were going to come over that afternoon. I'm a source of oral history, what I heard from them, and which I find, what was it? Very, very interesting,
Right. Yeah.
because this is my history, but it's the history of how this valley was created.
Right. Right.
You know,
I've got a question for you. I did hear one of the other candidates running for uh, one of the other place one. I don't know whether it's place 1 and 2, and he was bringing up the fact that I don't know if in the race that he's running in that there's a lot of rich guys that are running in that. uh, do you think that somebody extremely wealthy can be as good a representative as somebody else that may not have as much money? I mean, what? I mean,
you
what do you
don't
think? You know,
own any property at all. I mean, that would be one thing. But I mean, if I have a saying at the office that everybody has the same fun money. I mean, in other words, you go have fun money. A person with a lot of money has a lot of responsibility, a lot of things they have to do. They got to keep track of things, and they don't have a lot of money just to go blow.
right,
Because they have but they have to do it. So they
right,
they learn But I would say, and I have a complaint about some of the people running. A lot of them didn't file their treasurer designation,
yeah,
and that's required under Texas law. And they didn't file the campaign finance reports on time. I was the only one who did it.
right,
I think Mr. Castro filed his designation, and he's not collecting any money, so he doesn't have to file a report, I think,
yeah,
you know. But that's something that you should be concerned with, because how do you want to represent the people on this district if you don't even bother to learn the rules of how to run an election in Texas? So
right,
it's a criticism that people, I mean, what was it, should take, uh, should accept, because this is an important position,
right,
and you learn the rules within the appraisal district. You should learn how to manipulate them to benefit the taxpayers that you're trying to serve. And if you're running for office, you should follow the ethical rules that are the Texas Ethics Commissions have laid out for everybody to follow,
Right.
you know. And
Right.
it's just that to me is, should be done. I think part of the reason why it wasn't done, and I fault the appraisal district for it, is they don't have a Pat Bettis like BISD has, where you
Right.
can go say, Pat, how do you do this? I called up, nobody wanted to answer a question because they're all scared of everybody. I
Right.
called up Hidalgo County, the same thing. Nobody wanted to deal with the candidates running. And finally, there was a problem with the fact that the appraisal district didn't have any of our campaign reports or resignations in their possession when they were supposed to have them. They had left it with somebody at the county, but they contracted for it. And I suggested to them, look, do like all the other taxing entities. When you put it online, let people see who's running and where their money's coming from. And they did it. Well, I'm
Right.
glad they listened. And then they did it here, and then they recommended that districts do that in other places in Texas. So I made a little difference so far,
Right.
in terms of changing the transparency of the election process here.
Right.
Comes from experience. Experience counts in government.
Right. Right. Yeah, that is true. I mean, experience does count. And, sometimes, I know a lot of people get criticized for being in office too long or something like that, and some people advocate term limits and, I've been, you know, for and against them from time to time. I'm still up in the air with regards to term limits. I don't know if they're very effective or not. I think sometimes it causes, one of the problems today with any elected office is that you get elected and by the time you know it, you have to start campaigning again because you're constantly in campaign mode. And some people say, well, if you limit the terms, that stops that process. But at the same time, term limits may also inhibit somebody from building a legislative. Uh,
That's the legislature, but the city of
yeah,
Brownsville, you essentially try to turn over people.
right.
Uh, and the citizens of Brownsville wanted to do it. They
Yeah,
turned over the positions by saying, look, you could serve 2 terms and you got to go. We're going to
right,
get new blood in there.
right,
And so you don't have this entrenched group, you know,
right,
that are going to control city politics. And that would happen in the past. We had a county judge, Oscar Dancy, that served from the 30s all the way to the 70s. You
wow,
know, it was a long time. I think he lost one election. That was in 33 or 34 or whatever in the middle of the Depression. Then he came back and, made amends, and what
right,
was it?
right.
Fascinating guy in himself,
Yeah.
so.
Well, one of the things that I want to give you an opportunity is I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of explain to the voters as a closing thought of what makes you different from anybody else that's running today, and it doesn't necessarily have to be within just the position that you're running for, which I believe is place 3, but just
Well, I'm running
what
against the counselor.
distinguishes, yeah, what distinguishes,
I'm
Mr.
running against
Cowen.
the counselor. Used to be a counselor at one of the Harlingen high schools.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and she's retired now, and she's done a lot of volunteer work, whatever. But from what I can tell from her resume, what she presented to the Democrats of Southern Cameron County group, that she doesn't run for office before,
Right,
and she does part-time real estate sales. And so that's kind of her experience there. And she's running as a team with 2 other people. People have these little small signs, I think it's a 2x4, I think it's 2x4, little sign, and you can barely see their name, but they're all over the place
so
saying
there
the
so there
candidates.
so there is a so-called slate out there.
There's a slate, and they're running, and this is the problem. They're telling you already, if they get elected, they're going to violate Texas Open Meetings Act, because if 2 people can decide then not to pick somebody on the appraisal review board, you know, and they meet when they're in office, they are going to be meeting without being in a meeting, which should be open to the public. And
Right.
I think they'll be violating the Open Meetings Act because they're going to cut a deal before the meeting not to have this person come on board,
Wow.
and they're going to, I mean, I don't know if they've thought through it about this or whatever else it is, but I just, don't like that at all. And I tell you what, I don't think it's working for them because these people are mostly Republican, and a lot of Republicans I know, and I've run as a Republican before myself. They don't like that. They
Right.
like independence, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, I'll leave it up to the voters or whatever. But I think my experience in government, 10 years service, over 30 years, about 35 years at different times, and just my being in business since, you know, the 77 when I was building houses, all the way to present, running a custom. I've been 42 years running a customs brokerage and 26 years. This year will be in the law that I've been a licensed practicing attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Speaks for itself. Uh, the other thing is, I mean, when I graduated from the University of Texas in 1971, I graduated magna cum laude.
Mm-hmm.
There was two summa cum laudes. There was about 8 magna cum laudes, and I was one of them. And if you
Mm-hmm.
know anything, the University of Texas at Austin, there's no slouch school. When I graduated from Boston University and got my master's in secondary education, I graduated magna cum laude again. They call it high honors.
Mm-hmm.
I got a law degree in 1997, passed the bar the first time and got in there, been practicing ever since. And I've been living by my wits, you know. I made a decision a long time ago when I got my master's in education that I would not teach. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be in business.
Right.
And it bad to be a teacher, whatever else it is, but I said I wanted to be in business because that's what I really loved. And so what I learned in getting a master's in education was great for organizational skills and team building and how to motivate people, and it's helped me all this time.
Right.
So. But
So.
anyway, that's the reason why I think people should vote for me. And the other thing is, I'm a consensus builder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just the fact that a person wants to join 2 other people and say, "We're going to decide for you," is not the way to do it. You
Right.
know, consensus is built through asking people, "What do you think?"
Right.
Give me input, and then you go back and you evaluate it and you put it into uh, what they want. You put it into. You give voice to it,
Right.
and then you try to figure out some way to put what people want into effect. Like trying to improve the attitude that people have about the appraisal district. It's
Right.
important to me that people trust the appraisals.
Right.
You know, that's very important, and they're not there right now.
Right.
People are furious right now. What they're getting this week, what they're getting today in the mail, not this, because today's a day a lot of people are getting their tax statements. You know, and I have people calling me, you know, all day long.
Yeah.
Is this for real?
Yeah.
They want me to help. I said, I'm not there. I'm going to try to do something when I'm there.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can. I think I can. I think we can look at this thing a little bit different and say, we need more than 4 meetings a year. We need to sit here and work out somewhere where we can have some kind of a rapport with the taxpayers so that, they feel like they're not being taken advantage of or
Well,
unjustly charged.
right. Well, I know that early voting started today, correct? Is that true?
Yeah, there was about 1,400 votes countywide that were cast today.
Okay.
I just
And early voting goes through to when? Till when?
goes through, let me see, I don't have it in front of me here, but I think it goes through a week from this Friday,
Okay. And the general election is
May the 4th.
May the 4th. All right. So if people don't make it out to early, then they can have another stab at it on the 4th of May.
They can go there. So,
All righty. So you're running again for place 3 for the Cameron County Appraisal District.
that's
Uh,
countywide race,
it's a
countywide.
countywide race. So for those of you out there that are planning to go out to vote early, or you plan to go out on the 4th of May, Mr. Cowen is a candidate for place 3. There are 2 additional place positions as well. So make sure to go out there and cast your vote. As always, as I've always said, you don't get hurt if you don't exercise your right to vote. And Mr. Cowen, I hope I didn't keep you too long. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I always do, but I really enjoy when you get down to the history because you've got a lot of history to talk about.
Well, it was a pleasure, and I thank you for having me on
Not a
the
problem,
program.
sir. And one of these days, I'll invite you for coffee, and you can give me some more history regarding Brownsville. I really enjoyed it, sir.
I'll let you Rip Ford's Texas. You can read it. You'll find it fascinating. He's a good writer. You
All
know.
righty. All
Okay,
righty,
well, go.
everybody. Well, that was it for this special episode of Brownsville Tech Live. As always, we've got other broadcasts coming out soon. Make sure that you stay tuned to our waiting for our next Starship launch, which hopefully will happen the first week of May. So stay tuned for that. And once again, go out there and vote. Mr. Cowan, thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Bye bye.
good night.
Good night.